Welcome to the DIY Goalie Podcast, where hosts and goalie coaches Nathan Park and Connor Monday share their insights on how to become a better goalie.
Goalies, welcome back to the DIY Goalie Podcast presented by True North Goaltending. I am back soloing another episode here today on the DIY Goalie Podcast. Nathan is away on assignment today, and by assignment we mean that he forgot that he had a family thing to go to tonight. So we're going to throw him under the bus and say, Nathan, good luck with that. And we have a good friend of mine and former coach that I used to work with a very long time ago, Evan Kurylo from Cortex Goaltending. Evan, how you doing today?
Doing well, Connor. Thanks for having me on.
Perfect. Well, we're very glad to have you on today. Just a little bit of background on Evan. Currently, as it stands right now, he is the goaltending development director for Knights of Columbus Hockey here in the Edmonton, Alberta, particularly in the elite level stream. He's also done some work with a past guest and a goalie coach that we've had here on the channel, Ian Gordon. And as well as a few other things. So we're going to talk a little bit about Evan's playing career, but mostly talk about his kind of experience with coaching and being in the elites level stream here in the Hockey Alberta, Hockey Canada realm, and just kind of chat some stuff about that here. So we'll just get right into it here. So let's just it's the standard question that we always ask: how did you get into hockey, and what drew you to goaltending?
My dad was a goaltender. I just remember going to the arena watching his men's league games, and that was back in the Furland and Forrester gear era days. I don't know if anybody remembers those brands, but
No,
I loved it. It was
that does not sound familiar to me.
it was the lunch plate size blockers. It was probably one of the first generations away from the all brown, like deer hair kind of stuff
Okay.
gear. And I just remember him bringing all that new gear home one day, and there's goalie equipment all over our basement, and I would just put it on all the time. So it was probably watching him play, and then the gear was around all the time. So yeah, probably the gear that drew me into it.
Okay. Right. Yeah. No, I get that. Like my dad still has his old Cooper, like the proper brown Cooper pads with the waffle board blocker and all that there. So we did a lot of hallway hockey back when I was like 4, 5, 6 years old. So that was fun. We'll talk a little bit about here, just kind of your playing career. You spent a couple of years in the KIJHL with the Grand Forks Border Bruins, and then spent some time in the BCIHL with Simon Fraser University, and then kind of capped off with the Edson Ice here within the NCHL Alberta division. I think that's what I'm looking at here. But specifically, I wanted to talk about Simon Fraser. We had Luke Lush on a couple of episodes ago, and we were talking about his time in college, university, playing hockey. So what was kind of your experience like playing hockey at Simon Fraser, and what did you study at Simon Fraser?
I actually transferred to SFU from the ACAC, so I had a couple of years. It doesn't show up on Hockey DB for whatever reason, but the first 2 years that Portage College was in existence, I was up there and had a couple of years. Um, that was a good program up that way, but you sort of outgrow it pretty quickly, and then just decided I was going to spend a little bit more energy on the academic side of things, so wanted to upgrade and see if I could earn a degree out of it. So
Okay.
SFU actually came up to Lac La Biche and played Portage in a bit of a season opening tournament that we had one year, and opened my eyes to the BC College League. And as soon as my second year was done in the ACAC, I reached out to those guys at SFU and went down and toured the campus and checked out Thompson Rivers University as well in that league. And SFU seemed to be like they rank fairly high in Canadian schools, and it seemed like it was going to be a good choice to go there. So I played out all 10 semesters, so 2 years at Portage and then 3 full years at SFU, and I actually dressed for an emergency semester for an 11th semester at SFU as well. It was a good time. It was a younger league, so they were growing, fairly established. Well, there was maybe 7 teams at the time, The league's transformed a little bit right now, but we would play exhibition games. We were starting to get some Division One schools that were coming up, like North Dakota and Princeton. We had them up for one Christmas, and we have UBC across town that we started a bit of a rivalry with as well. And so we got some good. We had some pretty good competition that came through there. My first year there, I was backing up, but we won a championship. Obviously, I wish I would have been playing a little bit more that year, but I was behind an established starter, and he did well, winning us the championship. And the second year, we started to get into a little bit more of the Canada West. It was still CIS at the time, and then some Division One opponents as well. Went down to Wenatchee, and we met Air Force Academy for the first Division One game. So that was an eye opener, being involved in that speed of hockey, and
Right.
yeah, it was a good time. I'm glad that I did it. I always say that my playing career I don't think was anything too special, um, but I'm still grateful for those opportunities as well. And then at SFU, I bounced around my degrees or my majors a little bit and ended up with a major in psychology, a Bachelor of Arts degree.
Yeah, that's interesting. You know, you get to you hear about all these college experiences and university experiences and whatever else. I've only been accustomed to what we have here in Alberta with U Sport and Golden Bears and Nadukes and all those guys. I want to talk quickly about your return to Edmonton. You did spend some time at Concordia University. So what did you study there? And I don't think you had any playing career over there, did you? No.
No,
Okay.
no, my playing eligibility was all done at that point, and I was starting to feel it in my hips and lower back and everything, anyways. So yeah, I couldn't have played even if I wanted to. At that time, so I moved back to Edmonton, and originally I just came back with my Bachelor of Arts, and I had a summer job in Vancouver as on a construction crew with a scaffolding company. And that boss was interested in expanding up to Edmonton, where I was moving back to. So long story short, as soon as I moved back, I had a job as a project manager. We got into the Rogers Place construction downtown
Oh, okay.
in Edmonton here. So that was really the one job that I wanted to be a part of. I knew that I wasn't going to stick around in that industry for too long. But I'm grateful that I managed to wrangle us that contract and kind of had the keys to get in there whenever I wanted to. And if we had a meeting one morning, I'd always go in early and check to see the progress on the Oilers dressing room and what seats are going in, and kind of full reign around the place. So that was pretty cool. Um, but I did that for a little while. I coached full time, and the more I coached, the more I was starting to meet other coaches who were teachers, and realized that that's probably going to be a really good fit. And I looked at Concordia, and they had a 2-year after degree program for Bachelor of Education. So
Okay.
that's what the 2 years at Concordia were. Just sort of a condensed degree that pulls a lot from a lot of the credits from the previous degree, and got my 2 teaching practicums in, both at hockey academies, which I was grateful for, and finished up in 2018 with the teaching degree, and been going ever since.
Right on. Yeah, that seems to be a common thing with most coaches that they have some kind of a teaching background there. Vimy Ridge Academy being a notable one here in the Edmonton area. St. FX is another. Mount Carmel, another one. Those are just the 3 that I remember off the top of my head there. But those 2 seem to really go synonymous there, and I think it kind of works, kind of both ways there, right? I mean, like coaching is a form of teaching, right? So you kind of there's a little bit of kind of skill transfer when it comes to that, both teaching academics versus teaching athletics.
Yeah, for sure. It's like the planning helps one way and the other, and then the communicating and getting a message across, challenging but not putting something out of reach for the students. So I think the planning element was probably the biggest part of the education degree that helped me with my coaching.
Okay,
Yeah.
right on. Okay, so just having a brief look at your bio here with KC Goalies. Wanted to talk about winning a scholarship to attend to attend the Network Goaltending Symposium. Where is it here in Madison, Wisconsin? How did that come about? Because that was back in 2016.
Yeah, good question. How did that come about? I think so. Another random job that I had, the year of the Fort McMurray wildfires, I had a job as a helicopter hot refueler, which meant that I would spend days and weeks up in the bush with this big fuel tank, and the helicopters that were fighting the wildfires would come down, touch down. They'd stay running, and I'd run out and fuel them up, and they would take off and keep going on their day. There was a
Okay.
lot of downtime with a job like that. So I got to know, started following a lot of the goalie accounts and got to know Justin Goldman and a lot of the work that he was doing, and saw that Network Goaltending was holding the symposium, and they were accepting some scholarships. So I just applied for one of the scholarships, which essentially just meant that they covered the registration fee to get down there. So I applied for that, and Justin reached out one morning and said, "Congratulations, book a plane to Madison." And that one was really cool. It was the first introduction to like a really big goalie specific symposium with goalies from all over the world. And um, there was a one point where I had a rental car and I was going back and forth between the university and the hotel, and I had met David Hutchinson and Kevin Woodley. And if you've ever met Woody, he's a very passionate speaker. He'll talk your ear off, and I mean that in the highest form of respect. He's got a lot of passion in the subject, and we were just down in the parking garage, and he's like demoing like butterfly and reverse BH and all this stuff. And get in the car. He's like, "Can you give a couple guys a ride back to the hotel?" So I had like him, Hutch, Rick St. Croix, who I didn't even know who it was at the time, but Winnipeg Jets goaltending coach, and I think Thomas Magnuson
Okay.
might have been in there as well. So it was a fun, it was an interesting ride. I wish I would have grabbed a picture driving back, because I don't know if that'll ever happen again.
Yeah, I wish you did too. Could have linked that in the show notes there. Um, okay, I guess I got to ask this question then because I have a bit of an idea, but I'm curious about it. So what goes on at a network goaltending symposium or something like a global goaltending retreat like you attended with Justin Goldman, like we were talking off camera there?
Those were two pretty different events. The Network Goaltending Symposium was run like a series of lectures almost. Like it was in one of the big lecture halls at University of Wisconsin at the Madison campus, and they had just several speakers coming through, and it was more just goaltending coaches, player coaches, um, anybody involved in an elite level in the industry was presenting basically on what they were most knowledgeable in, and it was kind of a lecture format. There was a little bit of collaboration time, like sitting down for lunch with the guys, and like we're all at the same hotel, so you see everybody around all the time there. But most of the structure was it was mostly structured as a like a lecture format. And then the one in Breckenridge was way more collaborative, and we had some ice as well. The one in Wisconsin, there was no ice to get onto. We did get a tour of the Kohl Center where the Badgers play, um, but in Breckenridge, we had access to the arena there that Justin was talking about. It was highest elevation arena in the U.S. or North America or something like
Oh,
that, and
yes,
you
something like
definitely
that. I think
feel
he
it.
was mentioning.
Yeah, you definitely feel
Right.
it, and even for an Edmonton guy, like you're kind of, it's like you're winded all the time walking around there. And there were a couple of guys that came up from Miami, so like almost sea level. It was
Oh,
a heck of an adjustment for them. But it was
yeah.
kind of back and forth between at the lodge where there were. It was a little bit more informal, like just kind of a conference room. There were still speakers, like projectors set up. A lot of non goalie people came and did some lectures, and sort of just for us to try and make some connections um, that we probably wouldn't have made if we're just kind of stuck in the goalie rut. And um, yeah, then we would get up to the arena, and there was a bunch of demo goaltenders that were skating as well. So um, we'd get on the ice, and a couple of guys would. It was kind of set up that we'd get together in groups, and the groups would make different drills, and guys from Russia would be showcasing what the kind of things that they're doing, and the Canadian guys would showcase what we're doing, and the Finns and the Swedes. There's a goaltending coach from Mexico City, one from Australia. Maria Mountain was on the ice cruising around, and it was a cool experience, but very, very different structure for both of them.
Shout out to the Aussies, our third, one of the top three demographics in listenership on the DIY Goalie podcast, which is kind of like an odd stat, to be honest. Okay, well, let's talk about this. We touched on a little bit here, but how did Evan Kurylo get started into goalie coaching? Starting your company with Cortex Goaltending. You also have a YouTube channel under the same name that showcases different aspects on how to be a better goalie. And so, just the overall question is, how did you get into goaltending? Why did you start your own company, and how did kind of all of it come about?
When my playing career ended, we that was with SFU. I was actually backing up that game, and just the way it all ended, I wasn't happy with how the season was done. But it was like, okay, that's my eligibility is up. There's no more. I knew I wasn't going to go pro. It was just time to pursue something a little bit more academic and a little bit more stable, and to get sort of going with life. I remember sitting on the bus on the way back to Vancouver though, and I just think like I got to be involved still. Like I'm not done with this game. I've got so much that I feel like I want to do, and there's no age limit with coaching. So I'd been not probably not coaching, but instructing for quite a while, since I was maybe 14 or 15, back in the old goalie center days with John Stevenson and his crew. I used to do John Stevenson's camps, and then Perry Pern's 3-on-3 in the summers as well, and started coaching with Perry Pern, and actually built a bit of a relationship with him too, and got some really good advice throughout the way. But moving back to Edmonton, I knew that I needed to get into coaching. I wasn't quite sure what I was going to do at the time. This is a few years before the teaching career started, so I was bouncing a few things around, and thought I'm going to dive full into goaltending coaching. And I I didn't know if I was ever going to get into the big camp format. Like Edmonton's very, very blessed. We've got a lot of really good goaltending coaches and a lot of good people that run really, really good programs here. Um, I looked at that and I thought, like, there's no need for me to start my own here. There's a lot of other people that are really well equipped with some good instructors and good partnerships that do a really nice job. So I wanted to stay, I guess, perhaps a little bit smaller and a little bit more one-on-one. And working, I needed an association to work for, so I think I just, as a young guy, fresh into back into Edmonton, I emailed every association that I could find. KC needed a coach at the what was then major midget AAA level, and so started with them, and actually kind of bounced. I had two roles as a goaltending coach and an assistant coach with them, and I had established Cortex Goaltending that same fall, just because I wanted a brand, and I figured the idea of growing something would have been fun. And at that time, started at KC. There was a group of other guys, Adam Surgery, who's now the GM of the Sherwood Park Crusaders, Brennan Menard, who's coached in the OHL, Canada West, AJHL, is now coaching in Sherwood Park as well, and Aaron Menard, who's one of my colleagues at KC, elite level coach as well. Coached in the BCHL, CSSHL. So really good crew that we all happened to start sort of at the same time. And just kind of stuck with each other, stuck together. And actually, Adam was a teacher as well, and I did one of my student teaching practicums under him at St. Edmund at the hockey academy. So it was kind of cool to have a mentor teacher that was also my buddy at the time. And from there, it just I started a YouTube channel. I've always been interested in editing and creating videos, and um, it's a fun way to do it. I've found the hockey world, and I'm sure as you guys have seen too, the internet's just strange with how it works. Like you could, in goal Meg posted that one video of, was it Devin Levi taping his stick and taping the knob of his stick, and it got
Yeah,
like
something along those lines. Yeah,
7 million views or something. And then you could
yeah,
spend, like I've got videos where I've spent 10 months doing research on how visual systems work, nervous systems, and make this 10-minute video. And 4 years later, it's got like 300 views. So the social media world is kind of funny that way, but I still enjoy doing it. And I like putting it out there because, like, my big part of the philosophy is if I can help somebody like a remote goaltender in northern Manitoba somewhere that just doesn't get any coaching and finds some use from one of these videos, then perfect. I'll put the time in.
yeah. No, for sure. That's something that kind of we found here at the DIY goalie. I mean, we're brutal on the content front. Like, really, the podcast is kind of the only thing that keeps us going here. But no, like watching, like I have seen a few of your videos over the years, and then again, obviously within goal and all, kind of all the other content stuff. Having goalie content, whether it be something as silly as Nick the Goalie's videos, or something, for example, from In Goal, or from you, and just something a little more serious, talking about the technical, and provides a little bit of coaching for that remote goalie up in Manitoba and the northern side of it there. It does help, and we definitely need more of that out there. The more that we're able to get the knowledge and experience out there, the better. Speaking of that, what is your coaching philosophy when it comes to working with your goalies?
Most of my work is with the grassroots guys. So starting from U11, U13, U15, U17, and not so much with the junior and college pro guys. But I do know that as they get a little bit older, robust athletes tend to pick up the finer details and the more specific elements of the position a lot faster. So with coaching experience, like a lot of it actually I would take off the ice to um, like starting off as a fairly robust athlete and kind of shaping the position out of that athlete. Strength and speed and range of motion, that's all got to be there. I mean, there's only so much we can simplify a C cut if there's, just really, for lack of a better word, a weak goaltender or a weak athlete.
Right.
Um, with that, as they get a little bit older, like I've come to realize that certain things just come online a little bit later. And as we know, things like skill sort of converges as you get a little bit higher. So you get into the U17, U18, junior, and a lot of guys that are around the same level are all pretty similar skill wise. And the separating features start to be with play reading ability and anticipation. So with coaching philosophy, I mean, physically, the foundation has to be there in terms of strength and athleticism. Um, Goaltending wise, a good place to start, I believe, is with mobility. And um, with that, like it's all tied into strength. So my definition of mobility is like a strong skating goalie, someone who's minimized, removed any physical limitations that would otherwise prevent them from hitting the right spot positionally. And then with that definition of mobility, you build outwards into understanding your positions and when you're taking ice, when you're drifting, when you're set, based on the scenario that's in front of you. Um, with minor hockey, I think puck handling is kind of an undervalued skill, just with number one, like having an understanding of how the goaltenders work within a team structure. And a lot of them, they get kind of scared to, number one, make a mistake with handling the puck because it's really obvious and everybody in the arena sees the goalie cough up the puck and they're in the corner and the net's wide open. But a good puck handling goaltender, like I know a lot of our brains would go to somebody like Mike Smith.
Yeah.
Um, he like I tell the goalies, you don't have to be able to sauce the puck from goal line to far blue line in the air to be a good puck handling goaltender. Like number one, just stop a rim, please, and understand that you're greatly disrupting a forecheck when you do so. And from there on, the issue is more like what do I do with the puck after I stop it is where a lot of the hesitation comes from. But we build outwards from that with video and understanding the scenarios and having a little bit of an understanding of a forecheck. I'm not going to tell goalies that you need to be paying attention and taking notes when you're in the video sessions and coach is describing how your 1-3-1 forecheck works. I was certainly never that guy.
Yeah.
Listening to drills drawn up at the board when I was playing, it was almost a surprise every time the puck came down to me because they kind of spaced out. I knew I was getting a shot. And I kind of liked it better that way because, you have to react and read things as they're happening. But I guess for philosophy, it's sort of built up. Like I have a full report card development program that I have here. If I had to break it down, I think like it's just so different because it depends on the ages too. It sort of scaffolds and skill stacks as you get a little bit older. I think a good starting point is just with athleticism, um, and then it gets just into mental preparation, properly dealing with a bad goal, and then just all of these little consistencies that goalies should try and build into their game to routine wise, just be a little bit more of a mature, consistent goaltender. And instead of being somebody who's capable of making a big save or having a good period, you want to be a goaltender who's capable of having a good season and having a good career and not just fluking one out once in a while, kind of like I did.
Yeah. Quick puck handling story. I think it was my second year midget. Um, Puck came down, stopped it in the far corner, had the guy coming down along the half wall towards me on the near side. So I tried to throw it around the other way. Ended up catching the stanchion in the right spot, sails over the top of net. No defense to be found. Nice wide open goal there for them. So after that, refused to play the puck after that. But no, definitely. And I think that's the thing as well. I mean, like the best goaltenders, some of the best goaltenders are puck handling goaltenders, but even then, the best goaltenders are the ones that are able to see the play and watch it develop. Again, like I praise, and I'm sure you do as well. Ingles pro reads. Getting to watch, watching the pros or the NHL guys, AHL guys, and PWHL girls. Seeing, just kind of taking the step by step. Watching those plays develop, seeing what's going on in their mind, and for lack of a better term, basically anticipating what they're going to do or what's going to come next.
Yeah, there's never a one size fits all for a situation. Like you hear who was just on there, Cam Talbot was just on in goal
Yep.
for 1-2, and it's just like a lot of constant problem solving and those little habits that are built in, the scans off the puck. The younger goalies, maybe they're scanning and they just notice that somebody's kind of over there, and maybe that's all they're able to process at that time as a U13 goalie, say. But that's fine. As you get older, I can't expect a U13 goalie to process handedness and path and a lane opening up the same way you would expect a U18 or a junior goalie to be able to do that. But at least if we're setting the foundation, like, look, is there a guy over there? Yep. Oh, okay. I have to potentially adjust for this.
Yeah. High importance of reading or looking off the puck to kind of seeing the play develop around you. Speaking about In Goal Magazine, we've talked about Woody. We've actually had David Hutchinson on the podcast at one point. still very jealous that I didn't get to be part of that conversation. But it's also been my understanding that you were a guest contributor to In Goal magazine. I'm presuming that kind of came about after having the conversations at the Network Goaltending Symposium with Woody and Hutch, and just kind of keeping connections there and stuff like that.
Actually, that was before I actually met those guys. Um, Same kind of thing. Like when I was starting out, I didn't know like how big or established or well known I wanted to be. I knew that I wanted to contribute, and it started off with an article that I was watching somebody do a goalie session one time, and it looked like they were working on foot speed, and the drill was lasting for like 45 or 60 seconds, and the goalies were just gassed by the end of it. And they're like, it's a high explosive, high intensity drill. And I was watching that, and I just my brain kind of connected something from the kinesiology days in university about just the different metabolic energy systems that we use. And the one of them, it's an anaerobic system that we use. And think about if you're in Edmonton, we've got those river valley stairs, for
Yeah.
example. And if you're at the bottom of those and you were to just do an all out sprint up that staircase, you would be able to go as hard as you could for maybe 15 seconds or so, and then you start to slow down because you run out of that anaerobic ATP as your fuel source. And with a high intensity movement like that, I'm thinking if you're trying to do a 45-second drill at 100% speed, you've long burned through that fuel source. So you are now operating a little bit slower than you wanted to. And if the intent is to build foot speed, it's probably better that you're doing a shorter duration drill, but at full maximum speed. And then, so, anyways, long story short, that sort of kickstarted a big research project into um, a drill about increasing foot speed. And it was maybe a 6-month research project as well, just a deep dive that I kind of did and wrote a big article. I had a website going at the time. I've since removed it just because I'm terrible at maintaining that kind of stuff. Um, but I wrote a full on article. I reached out to David Hutchinson and said, just would you be interested in running this at In Goal Mag? And he looked at it and he was interested in running it. They ran sort of an abbreviated version, and he made it look like a lot better than I had it on my site with good pictures of. I think it's his son Maddie actually when Maddie was really young. But they dressed it up and made it a good article. And it was after that that I saw Hutch and Woody in Wisconsin, and I'm like, hey, I'm Evan Kurylo. I'm the guy that did the 15-second rep article. And then it was like, oh, okay. And we kind of stuck around together for the rest of the weekend. And those guys are super generous with their time and super salt of the earth people. And um, I'll still reach out to them. Like I was asking Woody, is DMing him about some goalies and some of the clear sight numbers that are on some guys, and messaging Hutch yesterday, I think actually a couple days ago, just about some other things as well. And Maddie used to, or for a lot of summers, they would come up and attend Eli Wilson's camps up here. And my house is actually just kind of around the corner from the arena where Eli holds those. So once I saw that
Okay.
they were up here, I reached out to Hutch. I'm like, come over. We'll hold you guys, host you guys for a dinner or something. And we've kind of stayed in touch ever since then. Maddie's had a couple of games in Edmonton, one with the Giants, and then one with the Moose Jaw Warriors. And Hutch will reach out and be like, hey, Maddie's in town, get out and watch him if you can. So we'll try and get out and see Maddie play whenever we can too.
Yeah, because he was just recently traded to Boost Jaw, wasn't he?
Yeah, not too long ago. I think in January or so.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a tough situation.
Yeah, we'll link. I'll have to go find that article. If you have the link, feel free to send it to us. But we'll link it in the show notes here. Evan Kurylo's drill on increasing foot speed there. I guess just kind of synonymous with that question. Just you've talked about it before. Doing different types of research for content purposes. How does that kind of come about? Is there just like a random idea that pops into your head that you just kind of want to deep dive further into just what goes into the research process when it comes to doing something like footwork, for example.
It usually starts off with an observation, and then the research part of it's actually really fun. It's really enjoyable. Um, there's not a lot in the academic journal databases that's goaltending specific. Dr. Rob Gray out of Arizona State University has some literature on it. I think he was actually a goaltender too, but there's not a ton, and it's interesting because it's such a unique position in terms of the timing and the interception and the eye movements and the processing. Um, but all it takes is to find one good article, and then all of the references at the back of it will lead you on to three more articles about something. And so, to answer your question, it usually just starts off with an observation, and then I need to I just kind of have to do a deep dive on it. I did another one a few years ago on flinching because I see goalies that would do it all the time, and I actually had a period where I was struggling with it too. I was at a junior camp and in Canmore, and for the goalie session, it was the last session of the day, and it took a shot high and hard and ended up breaking my jaw in a couple of places. And so I was out for a few months, and then come back, and like you couldn't have passed me a puck and without me pulling up and flinching at it. So it took a while, but I got over it. And then it's sort of, as a coach, you see it coming up all the time. And I wanted to be armed with something a little bit more than just, hey, don't flinch. Hey, watch the
Yeah.
puck a little bit more. So um, it was a pretty big, I think I've got a full binder on it down here somewhere too. Uh, yeah. So this one was full of like
Oh
articles
wow.
for flinching research, and that took a little while to kind of sift through the relevant parts of that. And I feel like I have a pretty good handle on it now. I've posted some videos about it, just if it's going to help somebody, because goalies I've found are not likely to come up and ask you about, hey, I'm flinching really bad. Can you help me out? It's one of those sort of stigmatized things, I think,
Right.
unfortunately. But yeah, it all just starts off with an observation. I'm starting another one on some quiet eye research. If goaltenders are interested in a name to dive into, there's one, Joan Vickers out of the University of Calgary. If you want to understand about eye movement and tracking and proper tracking, she is like literally the authority on it. And this is kind of taking me down a rabbit hole as well here too. So uh, yeah, I heard your podcast with Ian Gordon too, and he was saying like a lot of guys think that they teach tracking, but do we really know what tracking is? And he's absolutely right. Like it goes so deep into how the eye
Yeah.
is moving, how the brain is piecing the scene together in front of us, and the mechanics of goaltending tied in with that too. Like there's a lot that goes into it. So yeah, it just starts with an
Which
observation.
Yeah, which in turn has created this whole cognitive training thing that we're starting to see pop up more and more recently. There, shout out to Ariana Krezik, looking to get her on the podcast soon here for with the Cage Performance, and um, just kind of getting the insight on that. A little bit of pun intended there, but yeah, no, definitely. Sure. I'm gonna have to pop by your house here at some point and kind of go through some of those binders that you have there, because those are. Those seem a little interesting there for sure. I think this kind of segues really nicely into the next question here. Uh, Talking about doing the research and stuff. A couple years ago, I had attended, and ironically enough, I didn't know that it was you hosting it until day of the Goaltending Development One program with Hockey Alberta. Um, so how did you get involved with that in Hockey Alberta and being the facilitator for the Goaltending Development One program? Um, is there something that you had some input on, or was it something that Hockey Alberta had just kind of said, "Hey, here's this PowerPoint presentation," or was it just kind of a bit of a mixed collab?
The exact same way actually that I got involved within Goal Mag. I was the one that reached out to them. There was like no recruiting me or anything like that. Like I found that like I'm not coming from an NHL name or any pro playing experience or anything. I don't have that benefit of the doubt backing me up here. Um, so if I'm gonna, I know that if I'm gonna work my way up, it's gonna be strictly merit based. And so like unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, like the grind of it is good too. The networking and reaching out to people and being proactive is kind of what has to happen for perhaps guys like us that don't have that name to
Right.
to lean on. So it was the same thing. Like I was early on, moved back to Edmonton, and I was looking for goalie certification courses and just hungry for some goalie knowledge and browse the Hockey Alberta website. And there was a clinic in, it was like Olds or Carstairs, Alberta, or something like that. And I drove down there and sat in or registered for the clinic, and somebody was Hockey Alberta representative was there, and I just introduced myself and said, "Hey, if you need, this is who I am. I'm doing some coaching. This is my background. If you need an Edmonton guide, be interested in being that guy for you." And for a number of years, that's how it worked out. Is whenever there was a clinic or an association that needed something in the Edmonton area, they reached out to me, and there was a time where I'd put on maybe I'd facilitate 3 or 4 of those clinics a year. Now it's trickled down to I'll maybe just do one a season kind of thing. But it's a really basic look into goalie coaching. If I had to really distill it, it's kind of built for that coach who knows nothing about goaltending that gets stuck with the goalie at the start of practice, or the head coach who's building their practice plans and want to include the goalie a little bit more. It's more
Mhm.
built for that demographic. And when I first started teaching it, like Hockey Alberta would send this PowerPoint, and um, at the time, I got to be careful with what I say here too, but at the time it was outdated. Like the demo goalies in the slides were using like second generation 12-inch wide Vaughn Velocity pads still. This is like 2017 maybe that we were doing this, and
Right.
the demo video was filmed at like Rexall Place, which I guess fair enough. It was still open at the time, but it was a little bit outdated. And Hockey Alberta was good. They were generous. They said, "Hey, if there's something that you want to update or tweak a little bit, feel free." And I took that probably a little bit too far at first. I just wanted to just flex some goalie knowledge, I suppose.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about like reverse VH post seal connections and stuff like that to this group of coaches that hopefully found it interesting, but probably left those clinics without a lot of value. And so it's evolved over the years. And now whenever I do it, it's more just so like, here's some really basic drills that you can do if you're stuck with the goaltender. If you are a head coach, here's some basic tweaks to your existing drills that you can do to make them a little bit more goalie friendly. Things like just minding where the shooters are coming from, because head coaches, I think they are well intended. There's just a lot going on the ice, and it's tough to design a drill around a goaltender and our needs. Um, and like I, in a way, I understand. So the thing that I've become really sensitive to saying, and I'm at team practices all the time, is like coaches are really good with drawing up these 4 dot neutral zone drills. Pull up here, shoulder check, open your blade, mohawk, pivot, turn, like all these really great feedback and details for the players, and then it just ends with, and then go in and shoot. And that's the part that starts to catch my attention. So I wanted to target that and go in and shoot part of the drill and just set some constraints, like go in, angle on your backhand, have this no shoot zone, or have some kind of a follow up play perhaps, or stand in front screen, just anything to tweak the existing drills. So that's how those kind of evolved. Um, but Hockey Alberta has been pretty good with, at least in the early days, sort of understanding the limitations and saying, yeah, if you've got something else you want to add to this and you want to modify it, then go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, we over at the DIY goalie, and kind of a bit of shameless plug here, we do have a podcast episode and an article with talking about how to run a goalie friendly practice, and it's not necessarily talking about, you know, gearing all the drills towards goalie development, but Gears more so talks about kind of what you were talking about. It's like there's some limitations or some boundaries are here when you're going and shooting on said goalie. Here's what you should be doing, and then maybe even incorporating some drills in that regard there as well. The biggest key point that I kind of took away, and it was kind of the motto that I used for the entire episode, was just it's the head coach's responsibility to develop all aspects of the team, forwards, defensemen, and goalies. And I think that kind of gets lost sometimes, because a lot of coaches, Evan, you and I both know, they were all once former players and former defensemen. Very rarely do you get a head coach that was once a former goaltender. Shout out Brian Monday, my father. So very, very, very rare that you get that, and so I think if we can kind of start putting that message out there more, and say like, hey, if you're the head coach of a team, whether it be at grassroots level or at the AA, AAA, junior-ish level, it's not only a bad idea to develop, your front end and your back end, but you also need to incorporate your goalies as well there. So again, the motto just being just develop. It's your responsibility to develop forwards, defensemen, and goalies, and by providing the most optimal drills to be able to do that.
Yep, well said.
Okay, so I got to be careful on how I ask this question, because I know you do have close ties with Hockey Canada and Hockey Alberta. Um, what I guess would be your evaluation of the current state of goaltending development with Hockey Alberta and by proxy Hockey Canada? There has been a lot of obviously criticism with that. Nathan and I have done the very same thing here on the DIY Goalie podcast. Um, Obviously, they are trying their best, and we can respect that. But I mean, when you see development programs like the U.S. and they have like their 51 by, was it 51 by 30?
30, I think.
Yeah, 51 by 30 narrative, which is 51% of the minutes played by 2030 for U.S. goaltenders. Finland and Sweden are really made huge strides when it comes to their goalie development. Russia in the same boat. So, what would be your kind of evaluation for Hockey Canada, Hockey Alberta, and where do you think on like kind of the goaltending totem pole does Canada sit at this point? Obviously, we were number one at one point, but now where do you think we kind of sit now? Do you think we're still a number one, or do you think we kind of fallen down a couple of rungs?
Um, Yeah, I think I can speak a little bit more to Hockey Alberta than I can to Hockey Canada. I have a theory with Hockey Canada. With Hockey Alberta, the people and the personnel that are being put in place are really good. So the goaltending lead in Hockey Alberta with Matt Wenninger, Matt's very good at what he does. Really good leader. I've worked a couple of camps with him. He runs a really tight ship, and the goalies that have come through Moose Jaw. So Matthew Hutchinson's over there with him right now, and um, Matt's a great guy, and obviously with Gordo or Ian Gordon in the Edmonton area too. Like the personnel is very very good. Um, in terms of the programming, I really don't know from Hockey Alberta's standpoint like how much they can mandate different associations for goaltending development. I know they are offering more and more camps in the spring and in the summer, and there are clinics that are available as well. Is it perfect? Probably not. I don't know if I would have a solution for that myself in terms of like what they could be doing better at this point. Um, Perhaps implementing something like, with my role at KC, with these organizations that have a director of goaltending development would perhaps be a start. But again, it's a really difficult thing to mandate because then like it's a budgetary thing. And in Alberta, we're facing the challenge of a lot of other leagues that are not under the Hockey Canada jurisdiction that are popping up as well. And they're really appealing for a lot of players to go to. And Hockey Alberta's got like literally no say in what happens with those leagues. And it seems like there's more and more of them popping up. I've got
Right.
my thoughts on that as well, but we'll keep it there. In terms of Hockey Canada, I mean, I think the World Juniors and international competition is sort of people's measuring stick every year for what our goaltending is doing. Um, I'm going to throw out a name. So, like with Carter Hart, obviously, with what he's gone through, if that whole thing hadn't happened, and I'm really cautious even going here, but like he possibly would have been a really good option for Team Canada at the international level. We've
Right.
got another one, Devin Levi, that's coming up. Jordan Binnington as well showed what he can do, and like in that case, how good do you really want a goalie to be? Like
Yeah.
Binner he's a very good goalie. He's a professional guy. If Carey Price were still around, I don't know that we're having this same conversation with the Hockey Canada thing. Like the U.S. once clubs like Arizona have grown, Vegas, the California teams, the Southern Florida teams, Dallas, like the hockey market in the US is growing more and more and more and tapping into a population that's 10 times the size of ours. So, just by way of numbers, once they catch up or get near or even surpass the number of their population that's playing hockey, I think you're just going to start to see more goaltenders come out of the US just by way of population. There's more and more people engaged in the sport at higher levels. Um, I think perhaps there's an element that's what's happening. It's maybe not so much that Canada's getting really bad with developing goalies. I don't think we've gotten worse. I don't think we've gotten worse at coaching goalies. And like certainly people are going to disagree with this too. I think part of what we're seeing is just that the hockey market in the US is just tapping into more and more of the population and gathering more and more people, and then just by way of that, more people are emerging uh, as good goaltenders. So the
Right.
US is like they've got a strong development program. If you guys have spoke about it before on the podcast, if you're using the USA Hockey versus Hockey Canada websites as a resource, well, which one would you rather use, right? Like
Yeah.
in terms of what's built up a little bit more. So I think the position is a little bit more guarded and professionalized in Canada at the younger grassroots levels as well. Like Steve McKeegan has a channel where he speaks to this as well, where we do just seem to be kind of guarded with our material. And I get it,
Hmm.
like people are trying to run businesses and they're trying to stay true to their philosophies without that, sort of getting out, and they want to stay separated. So long story short, I don't know. I have no idea. I think part of the story, though, is just the U.S. population. More and more of it is joining hockey, and we're just seeing that emerge at the elite levels with the numbers that they're putting out.
Yeah. I think in Canada, we've been very, very blessed with guys like Marc Andre Fleury, Martin Broder, Carey Price. So those guys are legends when it comes to hockey, when it comes to goaltending in Canada. And I suppose because we've gotten so accustomed to that, when you have guys like even I'll admit, like I had my doubts about Binnington and Aiden Hill and Sam Montembeau for the World Cup, not the World Cup of hockey, the Four Nations, as an example there, because those aren't typically, for lack of a better term, household names, we'll call it, that we're accustomed to. Again, that is it's definitely been a hot topic there for certain. And for somebody like yourself, and and being part of hockey Alberta and Hockey Canada, having just kind of that relationship there is interesting to kind of see what your thoughts were on that. We'll kind of jump into it here. Probably have taken up a little bit more time than you would like, the Kevin Woodley special. Talk quickly about here. You and I have crossed paths many, many times. Most recently, every Monday, right around 5-6 o'clock at the KC Arena. You're the director of goaltending for the Knights of Columbus Hockey Association, particularly in their elite level stream here in the Edmonton, Alberta. You got a lot of great staff members there as well. Yaman Cardinal being one of them. I've met him a couple of times. How did that come about, and how did you end up bringing the people on that you have there to kind of deal with that, and kind of what's the structure there?
Yeah, again, so the Knights of Columbus, KC as they're known around here, they've been very, very good in terms of just bringing in, like at the time it was me, sorry, it was like Adam Surgery, Brendan Menard, Aaron Menard, and myself that kind of had this idea to just build the development, and they've been really good with, for the most part, giving us the keys to do so. There was a time like that first year where I just had the major midget AAA Pats, and years after that, sort of with the Squires or Bantam AAA team, and then I gravitated and sort of spread out to the other teams in the elite stream. And there was a year where I was the goalie coach for it was 10 teams, I think, that we had at that time. So I would get out to 10 different teams every week and work with all their goalies. And um, for those coaches who are married, you'll understand that you're going to get some resistance if you're out of the house that often. I've got a very patient wife, and this was before the days of kids. So like it's kind of like I'm out again, and it's kind of funny. Like I got home after school today at 3:30 or 4:30, and I'm like, oh, this is what my house looks like in the daytime, just because you're never here during the day, right?
Yeah.
But I realized doing it that year that like I'm just not doing a good job. I'm spread too thin. I know my philosophy is good. I know my communication is good. I'm just spread way too thin. I'm not able to catch up on the video with all these guys, so I'm just kind of recycling drills here and there rather than giving the guys what they need. So it was around then that I just finished Justin Goldman's, what it had been, his second book, between two worlds. I think it was
Okay.
that one. It's the really, really thick one, um,
Right.
where he just explores the goalie development in like across the world. And the chapter in Finland and Sweden with Hannu Nyquist and Thomas Magnusson caught my attention because the Finnish structure was a little bit more like KC's structure, where we don't have 19 goalies trying out for a Bantam AAA team. There's years that we have 6
Right.
trying out. So we it's not so much a matter of like set up the drills, the best will emerge, and we'll take them. It became like, okay, well, U15, it's a really strong birth year because the guys at U13 are really well developed. And for me, it was more of a matter of how can we hit the guys in the entire association. So we built a development program where I staff each one of the elite teams with a dedicated goalie coach, and those guys just stay with that team throughout the year. They build a relationship. We've been at it for a few years now, so some of those coaches are kind of moving up with the kids as they get older too, and they're able to build these longer term relationships and stay working with them. And we've got a style of play at KC that Aaron and Brennan and Adam have sort of laid out. And I've come in and added a goaltending element to that. So KC is a big possession based style of play where they don't really dump the puck in. There's a lot of like F3 activation. There's just with the way the system works, how can we build the goaltenders into that style of play? And what are the things at the different levels that the goaltenders need in order to be successful, plus what are we going to have to do to prepare them for the next level. So I've got this big It's structured almost like a report card that you would get in school, and it just hits these different levels, these areas of understanding from personal, and it gets down into the really, really simple stuff like how are your pads strapped? Are you bringing a water bottle on the ice? What's your paddle size for your stick? What's your skate sharpening that you're using? How are you doing your toe ties on your skates? Because I'm sure you've seen it. You have to stop a drill half the time because toe ties or laces are coming loose. So
Yeah.
I would put a lot of those things into the category of um, something that you would expect somebody to have taught these kids at some point, but they just never have. So we try to cover all these things. Then it just sort of zooms out from there. So goalie's interaction with the net and the posts zooms out even more. So goalie moving through the crease, controlling the puck around the crease, and then it zooms out once more into a global understanding of the game, understanding like a face-off mismatch or possibly facing a set play, or what your role is in disrupting a forecheck, or um, you know, lineup mismatches, or puck gets sent in on you at a certain point of the period. Are you playing it or are you covering it up? That kind of thing. And we grade each of the goalies. They get a score on it. And when I do all the exit meetings at the end of the year, I'll go over it with them and just give them something to go into the spring and the summer with, to sort of focus on. So there's a little bit to it. And now, rather than me getting out to 9 different teams on a weekly basis, I've got my 3 teams that I'd get out to on a weekly basis, and I'm on about a 3 or 4 week rotation where I'll get out to each of the others. And sometimes it works where I'm on the ice at the same time as the staffed goalie coach, and if it's a younger guy, I can give that coach some feedback as well, so I can coach the coach as well as coaching the goaltenders, and just build sort of I would call it a vertically integrated program. So the goalies are aware of what's coming next and what they need to do to be successful at the next level.
Yeah. I like that. I like that a lot, and that's something that we were talking about. Not to that extent, but um, something that we've been talking about here over at True North Goaltending. Um, I think I was going to comment on this earlier, but I like that you have dedicated coaches to each team. And I was mentioning it in another podcast episode where it's like, in my perfect world, every minor hockey team would have a dedicated goalie coach to some degree, whether it's somebody who is a goalie coach such as you or myself, or again somebody who's dedicated to that position, not necessarily being stuck with the goalies, but somebody who does have that level one, we'll call it, certification. And I think for me personally, I think that should be a requirement of every minor hockey team in Edmonton, and more broadly the entirety of Alberta. But we'll start small here in Edmonton.
Yeah, let's start small, and then we'll worry about the bigger issues later.
Yeah, exactly. Um, Well, Evan, this has been a slice here today. Again, I really appreciate you coming on here, and I do want to leave you with a couple of things here. What would be your one piece of advice for all the goalies at different levels out there? And are there any kind of final thoughts that you kind of want to get out there while we have the podcast platform here for you?
Um, I've got so I got 2. I'll try and keep it as quick as I can. So there's another guy on YouTube, Jamie Phillips, Dr. Jamie Phillips. He's got some really
Yep.
good content, and he had one recently, an idea called "Don't major in the minors." So the idea that, like, put your energy in parts of your game that stand to have the most impact on your performance. So rather than, I guess, focusing too much on like your ability to shoot the puck and put one off the crossbar or rim it around the glass, like once you've hit those basic parameters of a lot of these skills, you're probably good, and focus in on something that's actually going to um, stand to have a big return in your game. So perhaps flexibility, core strength, something like that. And then just to tie that in, um, there's an article that I read a couple of years ago called "The Mundanity of Excellence," And it was basically following a swimming program out of a little town called Mission Viejo in California. And it was the article is basically about how boring the process is to become really, really good at something. And the idea was that this swimming program that since 1976, I think, was producing elite swimmers that were going to the Olympics, like in every Olympic year since 1976. The idea was that this program was doing something amazing technologically or with these new advanced training methods. And there's an excerpt in that article. I wrote it down here. I'll read it out. Every week at the Mission Viejo training pool, where the national championship uh, team practices, coaches from around the world would be on deck visiting, watching as the team did their workouts, swimming back and forth for hours. The visiting coaches would be excited at first just to be here. Then, within an hour or so, they would become very bored, walking around back and forth, looking at the deck, glancing around at the hills, reading the bulletin boards, blah blah blah. Um, when wondering when something dramatic and something amazing was going to happen with this coaching and this development program. And of course, it never did. It was just the mundanity of it's time to put in the work. It's time to swim some laps. Um, it's time to keep on doing the little things and build it piece by piece. So they have all come to Mecca, and I can't even read my own writing here. They've all come to Mecca and see what we do. They think we have some huge secret, but we don't. And I would say for goaltenders, like there's all sorts of options on where to play. There's always going to be really good sales pitches that appear that the grass is greener somewhere else. There's only so many different ways somebody's going to tell you you need to bend your knees. Um, there's a lot of it's just going to come down to you and just loving that grind. Um, you have to be the goaltender who, if you see a blank sheet of ice and nobody on it and you're allowed to be on it, like it should just be killing you inside that you don't have your gear on already and that you can't be out there. You can't get dressed fast enough to get out on the ice. If it's waking up in the morning is a grind and people are pulling you out of bed and pulling you to practice, it's going to be tough. No program anywhere is going to be able to develop past that. So a little bit of it is
Right.
just that fire and building piece by piece. Um, Focusing the energy on the areas of your game that stand to have the biggest return.
Yeah. And that's like that type of mindset is just great for life in general, applying that similar mindset, to academics or to like I'm trying to get back into the gym again, very horribly doing so. For the little one that I have that I have coming on the way there. So again, it's the grind that I think kills a lot of people, but eventually once you are able to reach the top of the mountain of that climb, it's all worth it in the end there. I did want to leave this as well. I meant to mention it in a similar point. We talked about this kind of the gatekeeping, we had talked about earlier when it comes to, we'll just say coaches as a whole, but more specifically when it comes to goalie coaches, everybody thinks that they have like, oh, we have this special secret sauce or whatever, and maybe you do, maybe you don't, but it's, especially in today's day and age, where you have social media, I think we all have to be talking to each other. We can't keep cards close to our chests anymore. Maybe certain things yes, maybe certain things no, but I think just we all have to communicate with each other now. And so it's no more about like, oh, Steve McKeegan, again, love him, is better than Evan Kurylo, or Evan Kurylo is better than Ian Gordon, or whoever, right? It's like we're all working on the same playing field. We all have the same goal at the end of the day. So let's talk to each other and let's all collaborate like we do at the network goaltending symposiums, rather than, no, don't go to so and so because they don't teach what I teach, or anything of that sort. Um, so just some to end on there. I don't know if you agree with that or not, but I hope you do. But just that's something that I know that we've been trying to push here as well.
Yeah, 100%. I think at the end of the day, we're all trying to reverse engineer the same position and the same thing and figure out what works and what doesn't. So there's a really good chance that we're all seeing something very, very similar anyways. And
Yeah.
so I don't know. I say let's work together. Like, you could put out your entire coaching philosophy somewhere. Doesn't mean that just anybody's going to be able to pick it up and teach it the same way that you can either.
Exactly. Yeah, it all gets communicated differently at the end of the day. Evan, lastly here, again, I really feel like Woodley at this point. Where can people find you? How can people reach out to you if they have any questions or if they want to see what you're doing over on the socials?
Oh, like I said, I'm terrible at updating these things. Maybe in the spring here, now that things have slowed down a little bit, but at Twitter at Cortex Goal, Coretex, and then same thing on YouTube, Cortex Goaltender Development. You probably get a hold of me. One of those two channels would be the best, and I promise within 4 to 6 weeks, I'll reply to a message there.
Perfect. Well, we'll have that all linked up in the show notes there. Evan, can't thank you enough for coming on today. Again, you're another inspiration for me when it comes to coaching, and I very much was happy to be working with you when working with you in Gordon there. But again, just thank you for coming on the pod. Really appreciate it.
Hey, appreciate you having me on, man. It was good to catch up and talk goalie for a little while here.
Yeah, let us know when you completed your research on what was it what was it with the what are you working on again?
It's called the Quiet Eye.
Okay, yeah. So let us know when you're done with the Quiet Eye research. We'll get you back on here and we'll get to talk about it.
You got it.
Perfect. Well, goalies, thank you very much for watching. If you are watching over on YouTube at the DIY Goalie channel, if you are listening on your favorite podcasting platforms, Apple, iHeart, Spotify, etc., thank you very much. If you are a new follower to the DIY Goalie podcast, first off, thank you for watching. If this was your first time watching or your first time listening, make sure you give us a follow or subscribe. It's free. Doesn't charge you anything. The more goalies that we're able to bring together and share the knowledge, the better. Beyond that, if you want to follow us on the social media side of things, just give us a follow at True North Goaltending. We're going to be migrating all of that stuff over to True North Goaltending. Anyways, go check out the previous 2 episodes talking about that. But go give us a follow at True North Goaltending on all your favorite social media platforms, except for Instagram, because we like to be different. You can follow us there at YEG Goalie Coach. You can follow myself at Monday GC over on Instagram. And beyond that, check us out at True North Goaltending as well for all of our summer sessions and our facility sessions in the Nisku area. And yeah, we'll cap it off there. Make some saves, goalies. We'll see you guys next time. Take care.